Welcome to Security Like the 80s, How I Stole Your RF, and we'll be exploring CVE 2022-27254 and more. So who am I? My name is Ayyapan Rajesh, and I'm an aspiring security researcher and a student at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. You can go visit my website or follow me and reach out to me on either Twitter, and you can also go check out my GitHub repositories. And the co-author for this is Papa Mikhail, also known as Scott. He's a sub-gigahertz architect for flipper devices, and you can reach out to him at Telegram or even check out his GitHub repo. So these are the videos that introduced me to the very concept of cybersecurity. So huge shout out to Sami Kamkar, Hack5, and even DEF CON for teaching me what cybersecurity is, and which even got me interested in the field. And it's been almost 7 years, and it's insane that I have this opportunity now. So quick disclaimer, no key fobs are harmed in the making of this presentation, and please do not try stealing cars. This presentation in no way is to encourage vehicle theft. So story time, how did I get to this? So this all started off for a class in college last semester, which was ECE 488, cybersecurity, cyber threats and security management by Professor Liu. And we had to do a project for the class. And I thought to myself, why not take this opportunity and try something new, something that I've been wanting to do for so long. So I was searching around and I came across the CVE for a 2017 Honda CRV. And I thought, I have a Honda Civic, it's 2018, it's not mentioned here, and why not try it myself? So I went through the repositories and I saw two links, which was to a GitHub repository by Hacking in Your Heart. His name is Blake Berry, and the vulnerability was first reported by Victor Cazares, another security researcher. So I went on Facebook Marketplace, found a HackRF for about $250, got it and tested on my car, and it worked. So what next? I realized that the CV only mentioned a 2017 car, and I thought, why not build onto it? Why not try and add to make a complete list of the vehicles that are vulnerable to a simple replay attack? So I submitted a CVE, got this email. So we were credited for this CVE, and here's a picture of it on the NVIDIA website. So that got me quite a bit of attention. I didn't expect it at first, but then I had the opportunity to be interviewed by Fox 11 LA, and we even featured on it. I was also interviewed by ABC's Good Morning America, which was an amazing experience, even though it didn't get that. So getting into the tech. So keyless entry systems have been there for a really long time. So over 72% of the cars after 2014 have them, and even 91% after 2019. So that's a huge amount of cars. So for this attack, we'll be exploiting the remote keyless entry systems on vehicles. So it was first introduced by Renault on the Renault Fuego way back in 1982, and it also operates at 315, 433, or 868 megahertz, depending on which country you're in and which brand you're going for. So the way remote keyless entry works is that it's just one way. Something interesting that I saw on an article where, to quote Mr. Clements, where he said, it's similar to yelling your password across the room and hoping no one happens to be listening. So unlike passive keyless entry, where there's a challenge response, this is just one way, and that's why this is possible. So what next? We need to know what modulation is. It's the way the message is sent through radio signals. So you have amplitude key shifting, frequency key shifting, and phase key shifting, which is ASK, FSK, and PSK, where data is transmitted either in the amplitude, the frequency, or the phase, like the name suggests. So static versus rolling keys. I'm sure everyone's seen Sami Kamkar's fixed code and rolling code attacks on the Open Sesame and many things like that. So over here, what we're exploiting is a fixed code. So like the diagram mentions, the code is always sent as X and it never expires. But what's supposed to be good practice for this is rolling codes, where every time the button is pressed, the car or any other device, whatever it is, it rolls to a certain code that's determined by the pseudorandom number generator, and so does the key fob. But in this case, it's clearly not. So what tools are we using? So over here, we'll be using fccid.io. I'm sure everyone's heard of it in all the other talks, and it's really useful because you don't need to know anything about the key fob apart from its FCC ID, which you can Google. And then you need an RF transceiver, either a hack RF, USRP, flipper zero, or even a yardstick one. And then GQRX or SPI SDR, whatever you prefer based on your operating system, and universal radio hacker, as well as GNU radio. So fccid.io. So you can either open up your key fob or even Google what key you have for depending on your car. And for this Honda Civic 2018 EX, it's KRV52X. And then once you go onto fccid.io, six, seven. So we know roughly about where it starts and ends. And just visually, we can tell that it's FSK. So it's frequency key shifting, which is important to remember. And I'll explain that a little later. So getting into RF transceivers. So a hack RF, flipper zero and yardstick one and USRP enter 10 are great devices you can use to try this attack out yourself. It's worth mentioning that the hack RF and USRP are what are known as software-defined radios, unlike the flipper zero and the yardstick one, which are computer-controlled radio devices. So one main difference in both them is that SDRs can simply capture anything and it will simply transmit what it hears. Although for the flipper zero and the yardstick one, you need to know exactly what you're looking for, which means the modulation as well as the frequency, unlike the SDRs where it only cares about what frequency that the device you're trying to capture is using. And another big difference is that the hack RF and USRP go from maybe 1 megahertz to 6 gigahertz, depending on the daughter board present in it. But the flipper zero and yardstick one are sub gigahertz devices. But that's perfect for us because all we're doing is attacking from 315, 433, and 868 megahertz. So here's a short video on GQRX of a real key fob capture. So you can clearly see that it's peaking at about 433.6 as well as 434.1-ish something. So we now know that it's not only frequency key shifting, but it's also transmitting at two separate frequencies. And here's a video of SPI SDR as well. So in the video, you can see that it's telling you exactly, roughly about where the frequency is. So I estimated it to be around 433.65-ish and 434.18, which is good enough for an SDR because we just need a rough indication of where the signal is playing. So universal radio hacker, it's a great tool that I recommend if you're new to wireless security. It's really easy to use. You can demodulate, you can capture, you can even replay, and you can even analyze everything. But I prefer GNU radio just because I'd like to learn more on how things actually work. So it's built in C, and the way this works is that you just drag and drop blocks and feed in parameters, and it works. So this is the real capture flowchart that we have used. So you just have an Osmocom source, which is actually our hack RF, where you just feed in the channel frequency and your sample rate, And then what you do is you put it into a file sync in order to save it. And the Qt sync is just to show where the peak is. So if you see clearly, there are two peaks at 433 as well as 434 roughly. And here's the real flowchart for transmit as well. So all we're doing here is we've already saved the files in, and it's either file lock, start, and unlock. And then we can just enable whichever one we like, and then just feed it into the sync, which will transmit through the HackRF. So enough theory, let's see a demo. So as you can see in the video, we first used the start file capture, after which we use the unlock capture to not only remote start the car, but also unlock it. And then next up is my favorite. So New England weather in the summer can be really harsh, and it's really hot up there. And having a black car doesn't really help. So I use this feature almost every time before driving the car, just so it can cool down. But just imagine if someone was listening with any of the RF transceivers. New England also has a lot of snow. So just imagine if you were to replay that as a prank, of course, on. Okay, moving on. It's time to get serious. So that's the key fob, which we've opened up. And then if we want to extract useful information out of this, the best place to refer to is the datasheet. So once you know what pin you're looking for, you can look up the datasheet, which over here is the PCF 7 900, and then you just connect to the key fob via SPI. So Scott from Flipper sorted everything, and then using SPI analysis, we were able to extract a lot of information out. So SPI, which is Serial Peripheral Interface, was developed by Motorola in the 1980s, and you can use 3-wire or 4-wire as well. And this particular chip supports both. So the way this one was wired up was 3-wire. So SPI consists of serial output, MOSI, which is master output slave input, MISO, which is master input slave output, and S clock, which is serial clock. Sorry. And over here we can find the good stuff on the MISO. So here's the information on the MISO. So it's 0B 011 011. And you might ask me, what the hell does this mean? I mean, that's the first question that came to my mind when I saw this. It's just numbers, right? But to quote Professor Weil, it's in the data sheet. So then if you look carefully, if you see 0B 011 011 is 011 011, which is each bit. And after checking the data sheet, you can find out exactly what it means. So in reality, the screenshot that you saw previously was for selecting the baud rate. And here's the useful information that we have been able to extract, only some of it. So 0B 1000 0100 actually correlated to the frequency low, which gave us the information that one of the frequencies that it's operating at is 433.657070. So like you saw in the previous GQRX and S5 videos, we did estimate it to be about 433.65, but this is obviously more precise. And the same with 434.176948, where we estimated to be somewhere around 434.18-ish. And then something that's also very important is what modulation. So obviously we could see that it was FSK, but then this is a guaranteed value as well, because we know exactly the deviation of the same now. And going into the baud rate selection, we were able to find out that the baud division is 51, and with a little math, we can find out the baud rate itself, which came up to about 15380 per second. So what next? So we have Manchester. So we did find out that the device uses Manchester encoding, which is a way of encoding the data for transmit. And we didn't know much about it. So, and in fact, the chip that we had, the RF end of the chip, selected the encoding as NRZ, but the previous chip had Manchester encoding. So the RF chip only transmitted what it heard, which was actually Manchester, although it thinks it's NRZ. So here's how you calculate that. So remember the 62.81 microsecond in the previous slide? So that's the shortest distance between the peaks. So you divide 1 second by that, which gives you about 7,961 kilobytes per second, which is really useful because in case we need to demodulate it, we need to know the Manchester bit rate. So here's how you do that as well. So you just, once you get the number, you feed it in and it will demodulate it for you and gives you all the information you need. So you might ask, why did we do all of this when Universal Radio Hacker can do it for us, like really, really easily? And I have the answer to that as well. So I'm sure everyone's heard of the Flipper Zero. So out of the box, it cannot support locking, unlocking, or doing any of this, but with the help of SCORP and through this analysis and the information extracted, we can program it to do so. Like I said earlier, it's not an SDR, so you have to program it. So for this, he added the frequencies for 433.65, 434.17, and even added a special modulation called Honda 1. There's Honda 2 as well, which is more sensitive, but that means it's more noisy. But Honda 1 works perfectly. So real question, does it work? Looks like it does, right? So here's a picture of the key fob capture and the Flipper Zero capture as well. So you can see that the Flipper Zero capture might be a little noisy, and that's because of the CC1101 chip, which we already know is pretty noisy. So here's a video of it working. You might have seen this on Twitter, and here's how we actually make it work. Okay, next up. A Civic with a laptop is the most feared thing in the car community. And if you don't understand it, Google it. And this is a pretty sick picture. Someone managed to get Linux running on their infotainment system. So we already know that a Civic with a laptop is pretty dangerous, but imagine a Civic with a laptop and a hacker F1. Isn't it the ultimate war driving setup? Okay, enough about that. So what's the solution? So obviously I've recommended Faraday pouches on an interview and got trolled for it. And we all know that it's not the solution to this. It's just a temporary fix, but we all know there are a billion ways to overcome it. So rolling keys is the only way that a simple replay attack like this would not work, right? That means rolling codes, the safe word, right? No. So after we released this, my good friend Kevin 600, who's also doing a talk at Car Hacking Village, managed to break rolling code encryption as well. And he published his research calling it rolling porn. So there you go. So it looks like even rolling codes have been hacked as well. Here's his demo. So there you go. Rolling codes have been broken into as well. And he did report this to the automotive company at first, and they straight up denied it until he reached out to Rob Stump from The Drive, and he confirmed it as well. You can go check out his page on Twitter and see the demo for yourself. So after all of that, they did acknowledge the issue, and they said that it's not as easy to exploit. And yes, they're right. Car thieves are obviously more sophisticated than all of us, and they've been doing it for years. I'm sure they must have found a billion ways which are more efficient. So in response to that, Honda came up with a statement saying that our vulnerability has no indication that you can actually drive an Acura or a Honda vehicle. But I think everyone already knows, especially at the Car Hacking Village, that once you're in a car, it's yours because you have access to the CAN bus. And yeah, so this vulnerability alone cannot let you drive away with it. But we already know we have key programmers, and it's already known that car thieves do buy these things and they can program new keys for the car. It's like this. So when Honda came up with that, I said, challenge accepted.
Let's start programming. Start driving it? Yep.
So there you go. You can drive away with a locked car in just under 4 minutes. And that's insane, right? Something alarming is that these devices cost anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000. And I also learned that in the state of Massachusetts, you actually don't need a license to go ahead and buy one of these. So just for a video, buying one didn't make sense. But if you were a car thief, it's a great investment. I don't encourage it, and obviously you won't get caught, but it's very much possible, and it does happen, unfortunately. So in the future, obviously, we know that canvas attacks are a thing. Just imagine anyone can reverse engineer such a key programmer, code it into a great tool like JTurler's ScanTrot, and just defeat the immobilizer or make it program a new key. You can do it much quicker than 4 minutes as well. So quite recently, about 2 weeks ago, even Senator Markey sent out about 20 different letters to all different automotive companies, asking them questions about security in remote keyless entry systems or keyless entry systems itself, which I think is a great thing, just because many of these systems are vulnerable. And I've also heard from other researchers that car companies either acknowledge it and say that, oh, it's fine, but I don't think it's fair to know that you have a vulnerability and don't fix it at all. Especially fixed codes. The first time I heard about it was about 7 years ago through Sami Kamkar, and that's why garage doors now have rolling codes. So why not a car? It's the least that can be done, right? And in fact, the NHSCA only for 2020 approximates the cost of stolen vehicles to be about $7 billion. And that's a huge number just in the US. And that's from 804,000 vehicles stolen in 2020 alone. So what next? You can join us on this journey. If you want to show your support, please grab a free sticker for CVE 2022-27254 or a rolling pawn sticker at DEF CON's Car Hacking Village. This is what they look like. And also, if you are interested in this, is being done by Woody, who you guys might know him from Hack 5, Kevin, 2600, of course, and me. So, and also, if you do want a copy of the Flipper Zero custom firmware, do stop by the Car Hacking Village. We will have a QR code there that you can scan, and we'll also include a video on how to flash the firmware and guide you through how to do it. So additionally, we'll also be doing a live demo. So if you guys want to try this out yourself, please do come by the Car Hacking Village, and we're going to have a 2018 Civic there as well. So come try it out yourself. So a huge thank you to the UMass Cybersecurity Center and UMass Dartmouth, the Flipper Zero team, especially Scorp and Pavel, and my friend Avishi for the stickers. You can scan her QR code to go to her portfolio. And my professors from UMass Dartmouth, Professor Kaslingham, Fiandela, Professor Liu, Zhao, and Professor Weil, of course. And also my mentor, Mr. Sam Curry, who not only taught me a lot about cybersecurity, but also taught me a lot about soft skills and guided me throughout the process of giving interviews to the media, which was really helpful. and also my mentors from NCIPC, both the Mr. Kumars. Um, Also, a huge shout out to DEFCON Car Hacking Village, especially Robert, Justin, and Jerry, Kevin 2600, Woody, as well as Connor McLaughlin, as well as Macnells India and East Coast Chip Keys for making this happen. But most of all, Sammy is my hero. And here's a few more references, or if you want to learn more about this, you please feel free to read through all of this. And also, everything after the talk will soon be published on my GitHub repository. So please do look out for any of my tweets, or you can go to my portfolio website, and we will have everything open sourced for you to learn as well.